welcome back. My next guest has written a deeply personal memoir which charts not only his achievements as a Donegal footballer and manager, but also deals with the personal tragedies that have driven him to succeed. Would you welcome, please, Jim McGuinness. Well, it's a real pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Again, but thanks for coming in to see us tonight. You're a busy man.
Yeah.
What were you doing last night?
We launched the book last night in Gaelic, in my hometown.
How'd it go?
It went very good. A wee bit later than expected, but very good night.
Good. And was it emotional for you to be doing such a thing in such a place?
It was lovely, actually, because everybody that was there was probably a huge part of the journey over the last 5 years with the 21s and the seniors. A lot of friends, a lot of family, and a lot of supporters that were part of the journey, as I said. So it was just lovely to see everybody, meet everybody, because now that I'm in Glasgow pretty much all the time, it's difficult to get back and sort of get out socially, so it was nice to see.
Nice to get home.
Great to get home.
Yeah.
And I love coming home anyway, Ryan. You know, whenever I fly into Dublin Airport there, when you hand in your passport, they normally say welcome home, and it's a nice feeling.
It's a nice little gesture, isn't it? But enough to make you feel that you're back where you belong. Okay. And I'm just wondering about you, just watching it from afar down through the years. Like, I can imagine that you're grand on the pitch and you're grand in the dressing room and everything else that goes with it. But in the public, like the way you would be selling the book and talking about the book like last night, are you a little more on the shy side, or do you embrace that part of it as well?
Well, I suppose the book is a funny thing in itself, in terms of, I suppose, when I started out, you know, with the concept of it, when it was asked of me, it took a different form over the course of the process, which I found interesting in itself, and I suppose it made me look at things from a different perspective, and maybe look at things that I hadn't really looked at for a long, long time, and it became a different type of book, and I thought it was going to be 100% about sport and my time at Donegal, but it became something different, which was a good experience for me. It
became deeply personal. I mean, as you say, you'd expect a book by Jim McGuinness to be pretty much a sports story, maybe a bit about your past, but your past is, there are moments in it that are... In fact, why don't you talk to me? Tell us a bit about Charles.
Well, I suppose growing up in Glenties, like every other child at that time in the 80s, it was great fun. I suppose carefree. School was fantastic. There was 5 of us in the family.
Boys and girls?
Yeah, it was 4 boys and a girl.
Yeah.
And I suppose everything was perfect in many respects, and I say that in the book. And I suppose everything was turned upside down then one Friday night, out of the blue, and in the middle of the night, you know, we heard a voice in the room, and he was probably gone at that stage, and had a condition that we never knew anything about.
Which was?
Which was a heart condition, and there was no trace of it ever previous, and so...
How old was Charles at that stage?
He was 16.
And how important was he to you in your life as a 12-year-old boy?
Well, he was somebody, I suppose, who I felt was really, really cool and really looked up to, and he was a beautiful looking boy. He had a great manner, great work ethic, cared a lot about his appearance for other people, working really hard in the family business, and he was a great footballer, and I really looked up to him from that point of view.
And you heard this commotion in his bedroom.
Yeah.
And what happened then?
Well, we were all in the one bedroom.
Yeah.
And it was just a shout, really, and from that moment, I suppose, it was just panic and trying to see what we could do and get people there as quickly as possible that could sort it out. So it was a moment in your life, Ryan, where you're going along and your life is going along in a certain direction, and then just all of a sudden you're jilted and you're going in a different direction. And in many respects, it was like a sledgehammer. I have to say that, you know. I was 12, heading for 13, and you're never the same person again. That's being honest, you know. And all of a sudden, your life just changes, and you're weak and you're vulnerable, and there's this sense of free fall, and trying to make sense of it. And all I wanted to do was make things right for my mum and my father, you know, and to get it back to what it was.
And how, given that Charles died, how did you feel you could achieve that?
Well, you can't. And that's the thing. And there's
people so young at the time. How you know your head is.
I mean, there's people all over Ireland going through this process as we speak.
Yes.
And you're trying to make sense of something that you're never going to get the answer. So you roll it over in your mind over and over and over and over again. And there is no answer. And it's a very difficult thing, and it's a cycle. And you've just got to endure it and live through it and try and come out the other side of it.
Difficult then for you at school to focus, concentrate, to adapt to the normal conditions, because your life would become so abnormal.
Yeah, I think you live in your own world and you live in your own mind, and you're trying to make sense of the world, and everything that you perceived growing up, that how it was going to turn out, has changed in the blink of an eye. So you're innocent in one moment, and then you have to think like an adult in the next moment, and that's what bereavement is all about.
There's a scene that it kind of etches itself into the mind when you read your book about a moment shortly after Charles died, and you're sitting in the room and you're watching the television, and some of the pals have come round and they're talking about your brother, and they're reminiscing and talking about what ifs. What was going through your mind as you're focused on the television, although you were listening to the conversation? Tell us about what you were listening.
I remember the moment vividly in my mind, where I used to always sit beside the fire, and my clothes used to be singeing most of the time.
That was your place?
That was my place, as close to the fire as possible,
Yeah.
and about 2 feet from the television.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting watching the TV, and some of Charles's friends had been in, which was fantastic for our parents, people calling, keeping his memory alive, and you know, I think that's a really important thing.
Sure.
And one of them, I think it might have been Owen McConnell from Ardra, had said, you know, it's terrible, you know, because he would have been a cert for the county minors. Yeah. And I remember just them words, and I remember staring at the television, and in that moment saying to myself, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And in the moment, my focus became very, very, very concentrated, and then I became very aware of the fact that I didn't want anybody else in the room to realise what I was thinking.
Why not?
It
was a private ambition.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. But I kept saying, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And from that moment on, that's how I started living my life. And so when I would get in from school, 20 to 4, because we're just a couple of hundred metres from the school, I would be 4:45, I'd be running down the road or on the bike, and I'd be in the pitch, particularly in the winter time, because you'd only have maybe 45 minutes of light. And it just became a big, big, big part of my life.
Do you think you grieved through football? I mean, did it become a refuge for you of sorts? A place to go? I
think on reflection, having gone through the process of writing the book, probably, yeah. Probably, yeah. I spent a lot of hours on the pitch on my own, and trained and trained and trained and trained and trained. And I remember at under 16 level making the divisional team.
Yeah.
Not making the divisional team, I should say.
Yeah.
Not making it.
Yeah.
And thinking to myself, well, I've got 18 months to be a county minor, and I can't make the divisional team, and there's 4 divisions in the county. And I remember thinking to myself, I need to do this.
Yeah.
So I went harder at it and longer at it, and I started living on the pitch, you know, most of the time, to the point where the seniors then would start. So I would be down for a couple of hours, and the seniors would come in, and they would start training, and then I just became sort of the guy that kicked the ball out to them, and then I became a part of it, and then I was joining in games, and my development just kept going.
When you got there, it was in 1990, Jim, and the miners called you and said you're in. Where was Charles in your mind at that point?
He was very, very close to me.
Was he?
Very, very close to me. And I remember going into the dressing room when I got the jersey and handed the jersey, because the team was named, but it's not until you get the jersey that you believe that you got out onto the pitch, and going into the toilet and closing the door and having a few words with them and putting the jersey on me. And that was a good moment, because that was a moment 5 years coming.
What kind of words would you have had?
Honestly, I don't fully remember right now, but it was along the lines of, you know, that we did it, and I suppose what I wanted to do was to be true to him and to honour him as best I could, and I felt I got that in that moment.
Did you win that jersey for you or for your brother?
That's a good question as well. That's a good question as well. I think the positive that came out of that whole experience, Ryan, and there is a big positive, is that through his death, it gave me something to really, really engage with, and a purpose and a meaning. And I honestly think that there's a lot of people around the country tonight, and they're suffering one thing and another, and mental health and so forth. Yes. And if there was a real strong meaning in their life. And I think the GAA, in many respects, fills that void for a lot of people. Supporters, players, coaches. It gives them something to latch on to, something to really, really focus on and to be a part of.
Tell me about it, because obviously you went on then, 1992, you're part of the team, the All-Ireland winning team, and that must have been another enormous thrill and no doubt reflecting time for you. But what I want to ask you about for a moment is this return to education, your sense that it's time now to spread the focus, if you like, out a bit, not just on the football, but actually to better yourself in that field. Why did you choose to do that?
I think it's because I got so engrossed in the football side of things that I felt then, well, I want a life in sport, and I was very fortunate to get a job with Telecom Ireland at the time after we had won the All-Ireland. So I'd gone from not making the divisional squad at under 16 level to being an 18-year-old, going into the senior team that won their first All-Ireland. And I was very fortunate to be part of that group. So I could feel myself moving forward, I suppose, week on week at that stage. But I felt that I wanted a life in sport, and I wanted that to be the thing that I did every morning when I got up. And so I had a couple of conversations with my mother and my father, and I decided to go back to do my leaving cert, because I had left at 15 years of age, first time around. And that was the best decision I've ever made in my life. No question about that. The power of education is absolutely incredible. And when I went back the second time, every single day I was learning, and I was taking things in, and I was absorbing them.
It was going in.
It was going in, because I wanted it. I was looking for information.
Yeah, yeah.
And even now in Glasgow, when I'm in the house at night, I'm either reading a book or reading journal articles.
Yeah.
And I'm just taking it in with the exact same feeling that I had when I went back to do the leaving cert.
It's an enjoyable endeavour rather than a forced, which was you just weren't able for it at the time.
Looking at it from a completely different perspective.
We need to go to 1998 now, and Donegal lose the Ulster final, and you get an invitation to go to America, and you choose to accept that invitation, and you need to get to the airport. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, so we got hit with a very late goal in the Ulster final, and if that hadn't gone in, your life could be different and your life could change.
Yes.
And then I got a phone call to go to America, to New York, to play football. And I asked Mark, my brother, so I was the youngest then, Mark, then Charles, Frank, and my sister Nora.
So Mark would have been at this point what age?
He would have been 27.
27, so you were 25. Okay, so you say, give us a lift to the airport.
Yeah. And we go off and up the road. And Meath had played Kildare in the All-Leinster final, must have been. Yeah. And we were talking about that. And I remember Mark saying that if them Meath boys had the chance to play that game again, they would win it. And stopping off in Lahi, we got a bottle of 7-Up and we shared that, and we had a sandwich each and a bag of potato crisps, and we went up the road in the car. And I suppose 40 minutes after that, actually what happened was there was an accident on the road, and we stopped for the accident. And when we stopped, I said to Mark, do you want to change over? And he says, no, we'll do it in Cavan. And I said, we'll do it now if you want. He said, no, we'll do it in Cavan. And we went up the road, probably 200 metres, and a lorry came around the corner, lost control. And I said it to him, I said, that lorry's out of control. And he says, I know. And he slowed down, cut into his own side of the road, and then just as the lorry was passing us, it just came straight across the road and took us out of it. And that was it. That was it. We were flung, really like a matchbox, up the road and spun so many times. And the car came to a shudder and a stop, and very quickly, you know, you realised that we were in a very, very difficult situation.
Were you able to say anything to Mark at that stage? Or?
I just told him repeatedly that I loved him, you know. That's what I told him, and that the police were just up the road at the other accident, so they were on the scene fairly quickly. And then the medics and stuff. But that's all I could do, was hold his hand and look into his eyes and told him that I loved him over and over and over.
Was he in a position to respond at that point?
No. And that was because I'd been there before, and I had seen the faces of people in the room with Charles when they were basically saying, this is not going to change. And then being back in that situation again and seeing that situation again, I got the feeling that I knew I'd been there before, if that makes sense.
It makes sense in the telling of the story, but I would imagine it makes no sense in your head at all that such a thing could happen.
No, because I was the youngest, then Mark, then Charles. Whenever Charles passed away, we became very, very tight. Like, he was absolutely fanatical about me and fanatical about football and fanatical about Donegal, fanatical about Glenties. And so we were best friends, you know, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to say that.
Yeah.
And we were best friends. And he looked after me. He sent more money down to college for me and kept me going and done everything he could for me. And we were very open with each other. So we had a great relationship and great honesty in a relationship. Yeah. And that's I'm very privileged to have that and to have that time with him. So,
do you bother yourself with the what ifs? What if we didn't win that? If we'd won that?
At the time, I suppose for a long time, yeah. For a long time, yeah. But I think there was probably 10 years before I realised or accepted that it happened.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That is a long time.
I can well believe it.
It was probably 10 years before there was any acceptance that it actually happened. And that's just the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember Mark too, though, which is lovely in your victories. You know, when you're with Ulster and the Ulster Championship in 2011, I think it was your first season, and you win that. And again, throughout the book, you know, you say, right, that's for you, or at least your bus stop. Yeah. To say, what did you say?
He was a great character, Mark. He was a fantastic character. He was a great people person. So we would go always on you know, as the boys used to say at home, are you on the trip, you know? Are you on the trip tonight? So we'd be Fuppleton, are you on the trip? That meant we were going somewhere, whether it was Letterkenny or Ballyshannon or wherever. Are you on the trip? And Mark was always on the trip.
Yeah.
There was no doubt about that. And he would end up in a bar and he'd end up talking to somebody maybe 80, 85 years of age, and the boys would say, will you come over here, will you? You know, you're spending the whole night over there. And then inevitably he would come over at the very end of the night, and when we'd be going home in the car, we'd say, that's a lovely fella, that, you know.
Isn't that good?
Really nice
a good
fella,
sort, yeah.
And it used to drive the boys demented because they wanted him to have the crack with him. But nothing but really good memories with him. Nothing but really, really good memories. Both of them. And I firmly believe I'll see both of them again. And I think that's what keeps me going now. And I think that everybody else in our house believe that as well.
You're a praying man, are you? I mean, I asked Mary earlier on the same thing.
I think it's spirituality. I mean, your religion's important to me, but spirituality. And I think everybody has spirituality. And I think it doesn't matter what your religion is.
But you believe you'll see the boys again?
I do, 100%.
Isn't that good? Can I lighten the mood a little bit to this wonderful bit of footage I want to share with people? I want you to take us through what it's like to be the man of the moment on a day like this, when you arrive back to the hometown with a bus and that particular trophy, and a whole county is coming out to say thank you. There you are, with a grin the size of a grand piano on your head. What does that feel like? Talk me through that.
I suppose it's there's Daniel O'Donnell, our ambassador, Strictly Come Dancing.
Indeed, indeed.
It's a moment that's years and years in the making.
Yeah.
And it's dreams and aspirations that are years and years in the making. And I suppose when you get to that point there, that's the end point. But for me, everything up to that is the most important thing. It's the training sessions, and it's the togetherness, and it's the overnight trips. And it's been in dressing rooms at half-time when you're 4 or 5 points down, and it looks like this thing's going down, and you've got to try and find a way to win the game. That, for me, is what it's about, and that's what people bring with them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the boys were there last night, and a lot of friends there last night, and it was lovely to reminisce about them moments.
Do you think the Donegal County Board will enjoy your book, Jim?
I'm not sure.
Here's a quote. To my mind, there were people on the county board who wanted me to fail. And if that meant that Donegal team failed in the process, so be it. They're strong words.
They are strong words.
Was it that acrimonious? I mean,
it was tough.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It was very, very tough.
Some people won't be getting Christmas cards this year.
It was a kind of an ongoing battle, you know, and it was hard because I know myself from a psychological point of view that focus is a connection, and when you're focused, you are connected.
Yeah,
and when you're fighting fires all the time, you're not connected with football, and you're not connected with your players. You're dealing with things. But I have to say this as well, Ryan. There's a huge amount of fantastic people on the county board. Yeah. You know, and them really good people were feeding a lot of the information back to me in terms of what was going on and what was happening.
So there was a divide of the...
Yeah, and I think a lot of it came from the fact that you know, I didn't scratch anybody's back to get the job.
Sure.
I went for it the first time, I didn't get it. The second time, I didn't get it. And as I said last night, the third time I did get it, but I was only one in for the job.
Yeah.
And,
so your chances were good that day.
Yeah.
But you weren't beholden. You weren't anybody's fool or
that was
patsy.
the thing.
Yeah.
That was the thing. That was the thing. But I think where you're picking up that quote was 2013, and the club championship went on in the middle of the Ulster Championship.
Yeah.
So the boys ended up playing 9 championship games in a row out of 11 weeks, and it's just not possible. And that's reality.
How's Celtic going for you, by the way?
Great.
Enjoying it?
Yeah.
Are you going to go all the way in terms of management and that side?
Well, at the moment, I'm doing...
You're doing your badges?
I'm doing the badges, doing a bit more coaching. So there's a lot of football at the moment.
Yeah.
You've got 4 competitions with the development squad and 4 competitions with the first team.
Tactical.
So I'm probably in that environment where there's a game, build up to a game, valuation of a game, maybe every 48, 72 hours.
Yes.
So I'm learning a lot at the moment and seeing a lot and experiencing a lot, and the coaches have been great and the manager has been great. Everybody at the club has been great over the last couple of years.
So it's a good experience. So what about this crowd here that have a lovely picture of you and Yvonne and the kid? Are they looking after you, or is it the other way around? What's happening there now?
It's a bit of a one-way street. It probably has been a bit of a one-way street for the last 5 years, if I'm being honest with you. I suppose my own family in Glenties gave me the opportunity to be a football player, because I didn't put any pressure on me to go into the family business, and I was out playing football and I was given that opportunity.
Yes.
And Yvonne has given me the same in our marriage.
Is she a patient woman?
Very, and I suppose she comes from a football family and
she understands the story.
Football.
Okay.
And as long as you're out there trying to move things forward and better yourself, I think she's happy with that.
Thanks for coming in today. That wasn't easy. We appreciate your time, and good luck with the book. It's a terrific read, and good luck with everything you do.
Thanks, Ray.
Jim McGuinness, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks a million.
Well done. Thank you. There you are. That's Jim's book. And Jim will be signing copies of this book until Victory Always this Sunday in Four Masters Bookshop, the Diamond, Donegal, and then at noon. And sorry, then he goes on to Easton's in Letterkenny for 3:30.